What is going on, everybody? Today we have another video talking about our man, our boy, Sean, the People's Champ Strickland, going into this being the most discredited man in the UFC right now. Even Dana White can't contain his coping about Israel Adesanya losing to him in the main event of UFC 293. Now, what spurs this on? What created all of this? Pretty much in an interview with Dana White, we had him being asked questions by reporters, basically giving Israel Adesanya every single excuse under the sun to justify a rematch between them two. I'll play some clips for you. I'll dive deeper into this, but basically it was a reporter going into this, and Dana White could not fathom, he could not stand, he could not even find a way to justify it in his own brain, the reason why Israel Adesanya lost.
Israel looked like he was in slow motion. He looked like he couldn't get off. He looked like he was really stiff tonight. He looked very slow. He looked bone dry when he came out tonight, standing up really tall. Looked very slow. Looked like he couldn't get off at all. Even in the fifth round, when everybody knew he needed a knockout to win the fight, there was no sense of urgency to try to finish the fight. So I don't know if he's hurt, if he's, or he just, tonight's that night.
He was saying that he looked sloppy, slow, uncoordinated, whatever word you want to use that you might want to plug and play into that. Dana White probably said that about Israel Adesanya, and that is simply just not true. Israel Adesanya looked good. He looked like his usual self against Sean Strickland. He just got beat. It's as simple as that. He didn't win. He got beat fair and square. Adesanya was not off tonight. He was not slow. There was nothing wrong. He was not hurt or injured. He knew about this going into this. He knew about this date on September 9th for, I believe, probably 6-7 months now. Ever since the Sydney card got announced, he was pretty much a lock to be in the main event. It was just about figuring out who he would fight in that main event, and turns out it would happen to be Sean Strickland on short notice. I don't understand, man. I don't understand why the UFC is coping so hard about this. And like I said before, I said in a couple of videos ago, Sean Strickland is incredibly bad for business. The UFC does not want him to be champion. He is a terrible champion in their eyes. He says so many controversial things like women should be in the kitchen. He says shit like that. And that's why the UFC is not happy with him being a champion. Even though I love Strickland, even though I think he's a people's champion, he comes from a very bad background. He had teachers telling him he wouldn't be anything ever. He comes from a very broken home. This guy has had the worst of the worst and has made it through all of that and managed to become a UFC champion. It's a very inspiring story. The UFC don't want that at all. It's bad for them because this guy is kind of a psychopath, and we like Strickland for that. Us as a fan base, we appreciate the craziness that is Sean Strickland. However, the UFC doesn't, because in terms of marketing and branching out to other sponsorships, it's bad for them, right? I doubt maybe a brand like a Bud Light, Corona, maybe just any beer, Budweiser, any beer brand you can bring up in your head, but wants to sponsor a UFC event or wants to sponsor Sean Strickland, when he's screaming, especially Bud Light, when he's screaming about how a woman should be in the kitchen, that would bring bad news to them. It will put them on a bad spotlight, and they will get a lot of backlash from people who are outside the UFC community about why is Budweiser sponsoring a guy who degrades women? That would be a legitimate narrative from people who don't watch UFC, who don't understand Sean Strickland and his brain and how it works. So overall, it's going to hurt the sponsors and hurt the name value of the UFC when sponsors may not be as willing to market to them because of Sean Strickland and his crazy sayings, which I don't mind it. I find him based sometimes in terms of some certain subjects. Maybe not all the subjects about Strickland, but I do find him very funny. I don't take him too serious is what I mean. I don't find Strickland to be this serious guy who I'm seriously taking what he's saying into consideration. I view him as a meme, a funny dude, and a very good personality to listen to. And I don't take what he says too seriously, especially on the political side. But even though I may believe that, and the majority of the UFC fan base may believe that. People who are outside of it and people who are businessmen who want to branch out to the liberal market of the United States may not want to associate themselves with a guy like Sean Strickland. And that may mean, with him being champion now, disassociating themselves from the UFC, which I don't know what will happen. This is all just me theory crafting and me just saying shit at this point, but it makes perfect sense in my head. And this is why I think Dana White in his interview was so uptight and so angry about Sean Strickland winning. And this is why I think he was making so many excuses for Israel Adesanya to get this rematch, because he is their main moneymaker. He is their breadwinner in the UFC. There is nobody right now who is more active as a champion than Israel Adesanya, maybe besides Volkanovski. That's literally it. And Israel Adesanya being a bigger name than Volkanovski means they bring in more money. He is their main moneymaker because guess what? John Jones only fights once a year, and before that he hadn't fought in a few years. And Conor McGregor has been out with his a broken leg for years upon years now, and he's just not getting back. So right now, for the past few years, Israel Adesanya has been the absolute money-making machine for the UFC, and him losing to Sean Strickland completely ruins their plans. And right now, the UFC is scrambling to right that wrong. They don't want this guy to be champion. He's bad for business. He ruins all of their money-making potential with future matchups down the line for Adesanya as well. Like, the whole plan for this to happen was for Adesanya to beat Strickland, go on, maybe beat Du Plessis in a huge fight, beat Du Plessis, move up to 205, and potentially fight Alex Pereira at 205 light heavyweight for that belt as well. That way they can they can milk out every single penny from Adesanya in his mid to late 30s. But now with Strickland winning, that pretty much scratches everything. We all know as a fan base that he should not be getting a rematch. The UFC does not care. They need to make money somehow. It's going to have to be through Israel Adesanya and not through Sean Strickland. Now, it might pose a really big matchup, and maybe they can save some money and make some money by having a rematch between him and Adesanya. But does he really deserve it? Does Adesanya really deserve a rematch against Sean Strickland? No, we know he doesn't. He's arguably 3-3 in his last 6 fights. Robert Whittaker, I think he got robbed. I think Whittaker won that fight quite clear. I think 3 rounds to 2. But they give it to Adesanya anyways, whatever. Then he beats Jared Cannonier, whatever, boring fight, it happens. Then he loses to Alex Pereira, beats him, and then loses to Sean Strickland. To me, he is 3-3 in his last 6, without a doubt. Maybe 4-2 if you really want to, be a stickler on me. But he is 3-3 in my books. In my official brain, Israel Adesanya is 3-3 in his last 6. I don't care. That as a champion does not warrant you an immediate title rematch for the belt you just lost. Now, if he didn't lose to Alex Pereira in the first place, and then this happened, then I could, you could justify it to me that he should be getting his immediate rematch. Sorry. But then again, guess what? That's not the truth. That's not the world we live in. What happened before is that Israel Adesanya already got his title rematch, his immediate rematch against Alex Pereira, and we know that. So he doesn't deserve another one for only winning 1 fight in the meantime. Doesn't make much sense to me, but the UFC is going to find whatever they want to do. They're going to be able to do whatever they want to do is what I mean. And they're going to make sure that their boy, their star boy, however cringe and weird he is, they're going to protect him no matter what and make sure he sells pay-per-views for them, even though he's not that big of a star compared to John Jones and Conor McGregor. He still makes more money than them, for the UFC, than they do because they don't fight as often. It is what it is at this point, and I've kind of gone off the main track here, and I kind of want to talk about Strickland and everything and how he's getting undermined in all of this because, again, like I mentioned before, and like I said throughout this entire video, the UFC does not want him to be champion in any sort of way. But in that, they're not acknowledging him as being the fucking GOAT dude he is already. Beating Israel Adesanya 49-46 is impressive. It's really, really impressive. By not grappling makes it even more impressive. It's a better win than Jan Blachowicz beating him, right? Before this, we saw Israel Adesanya as that guy that maybe nobody could really strike with besides Pereira. And since he moved up to 205, nobody thought that anybody at middleweight could stand and strike and beat Israel Adesanya till probably the end of time. Now, we have Sean Strickland, who has the most goofiest, stupidest, not a very high technique style. He's very simple, uses a 1-2, and then he counters with a hook. That's really all it is for Sean Strickland. He came in there with that very basic and simple style and was able to put it on Israel Adesanya and rock him, drop him, put him down in the first round, then beat him up and outstrike him for the next 4 rounds. And nobody's giving him any credit for that in the UFC. Everybody, every reporter, every single news outlet does not give a shit about Sean Strickland. It's about how bad was Israel Adesanya and not about how great was Sean Strickland. He's my boy. I'm rooting for him. I agree with everybody in the whole MMA sphere about this. It's about how good is Sean Strickland and not about how bad was Israel Adesanya. He was fine. He just got beat by a better guy. It's simply that. But I'm getting way too passionate about this. That's really all I have for you guys today in this video. The setup's a bit different. My bulb went out in one of my softbox lights, so I had to replace it with an LED one that was blue. So we're kind of just makeshifting shit at this point in the setup. I also made my camera a bit wider so you could see more. I just want to do something a little bit different for this video. I don't know, I'm just changing it up a little bit, but we'll probably go back to the normal one here soon. But I just want to do this for now. Say you guys like it. Tell me how you like it in the comment section below. If you do like it or if you hate it, I want to know either way. We'll see what it is. But I'm out of here, guys. Thank you. Peace.